Yes, here we are online. Thanks to everyone for coming today. It's our 15th service design meets, and yeah, good number. And also it's like the Christmas period, so we're very happy to also welcome people and see, to do this closing of the year with this particular event, because also it's something that we've been preparing for a while, the specific framework and playbook that we want to present. And so, yeah, here we are. We're oblo. I'm Yulia Besplimenova.
Roberta Tassi.
And yeah, we are two of the three partners and part of the amazing team, which is also making all these things happen. So today we're gonna talk about the very hype topic, of course, the AI and service design. And we're gonna present you the work that we've been doing for quite some time to arrive to this point. So yeah, let me see if I manage to change the slides. No, from here, no. Okay, exactly. So for those who follow us online, we have this Miro board. I can also put it here in the, okay, now I need to change the screen again, but I will manage. So I will put it here also in chat, which I think should be available. Okay, so yeah, we have this little Miro board, which is basically replicating the posters that we have here in the space that people then can use. And because we will talk about our framework and about the bootcamps that we do. And so to start, of course, nice to meet you all, and nice to meet people who are following online. So as we're saying, we're oblo. If someone doesn't know, we're this hyper-specialized service design studio. And we've been working, of course, with many different projects in our general history of working as service designers in public, private, third sector, and doing a lot of work. But specifically regarding AI, we started actually already 7 years ago, before COVID, to do different research about the topic. And so here are just a few projects that we did, and we're going to talk about some of them more in detail today. And that was actually the main part, that because you can read lots of things that we wrote in the playbook, but we will talk more about the projects today also to present how we use those tools there. So why we're here is because, of course, as you know, there are lots of things happening with AI, a lot of hype being going on around saying that, we know how to build the artificial general intelligence, meaning that replicating basically a human brain. Some people predicting there will be like trillions done with the AI technology in the next years. At the same time, there were people observing that maybe not really trillions, saying that, there are very small percent of the increase in the productivity and the gain from AI, and that nobody's gonna make money. But worse than that, there are also, of course, all the AI doom. So the people who are saying that AGI is gonna kill us all and all those things. So there's a lot of AI's following cycle from the hype to doom to the bubble, which might collapse, might not collapse, we don't know. As I was saying, though, we started to work on this long before hype, and always our approach to the tech-driven innovation was that to approach it from the human perspective. So here are some slides that we did in 2019 approaching this topic of AI. So when to understand how to apply it to human life, we started from looking at the overall life trajectory from what people need when they're children, what people need when they're growing, becoming adults, like different types of adults, getting to become seniors, and of course, what exactly are their needs at these different points. Translating it then into the general understanding of the needs, from the safety to cognitive to other needs that people have. And only then maybe thinking about what could be the AI characters supporting them. So these are some of our favorite things that we were doing, these little ghosts of AI present in with different characters which will also have like different parameters that you could adjust for them to do based on what they were supposed to do for people in the different moments in their life. And so through different projects, we were going through thinking about, so how can we approach AI as designers? Because there's a lot of talking about, using the AI in the process of design, so GenAI and all the other things. But what we were specifically as service designers thinking is actually how to design the services based on AI. And so today we're going to be talking specifically about that, and the framework is about that. So we started to construct, well, first some tools, and then to observe the different approach and things in this approach that we're doing. So starting from the opportunity phase, orchestration and outcomes. So this is an expansion of Double Diamond that we called Triple O. So we have of course, the first two very similar to the Double Diamond, and we are adding another one, which is the outcomes, because it's very important, of course, in the case of AI. We prefer to call it actually complex socio-technical system, because it's involving both humans and technology. And that's why we believe also service designers are very well positioned, and it's very important that we start to learn how to bring it to people and how it's built and how we can do it all together. So yeah, this is the process which is continuous and starts from the definition of opportunities to orchestrating both the experiences and the way that AI is put into the organizations, and eventually, of course, helping in the adoption and also measuring the impacts of those outcomes. So for each of these, this is like a layered framework. So you see the full version in the playbook, and we will come to that. So step by step, just to tell you about the moment. So there are phases, then there are like some activities. Of course, these are not just all the activities that we do in design, but like thinking about like, opportunity areas, and then defining some relationship and design of these AIs and prototyping, and then adopting and measuring the impacts. Of course, the research is becoming especially important in these times, despite everyone trying to make it with AI. But given that this technology is very complex and really implementing it takes a lot of time and effort and money, it's really important to be sure what we want to make and how to implement it, and how then to measure the impacts. So the research layer, as we called it, it's like really in the middle, in the center of the whole process, as it should always be, and that we believe. Then there are tools. Of course, there are multiple service design tools, and we started to apply some specifically to this issue of AI and adjust them. Actually, one of the questions we will ask you after is if there are some other tools that you think helpful. So think if something comes to your mind. This is not absolutely us saying that these are only tools. It's just something that we tried and tested, and we think it's working. We're totally open to all the discussions and the understanding of what are the other people using, how it's working. So there's this level of the tools, and we are going to talk also how they use them. And then there's the level of these principles. So how do you approach each of these phases, starting from what we called organizational principles on how to really approach thinking about whether we need AI in the organization or not, going into the design principles, which are built from the interaction service design principles, and the ethical principles, which of course are extremely important and should be applied across all the process. I don't know if you want to add something about this. Okay. So we wanted to go through all the phases and tell you what we thought for each of them. So starting from the opportunity, of course, it's one of the most crucial questions of like, okay, there's AI, there's technology, a lot of hype. Everyone is like, okay, where should we use it? How can we apply it? So we absolutely should apply it because other companies are applying it. So absolutely, we're losing time and money and everything. Well, and often people think about, okay, what should we automate? Or often then we're talking about the augmentation part. So what can be done better than what humans are able to do that? In the middle, there's probably the part about assistance, where AI is helping people to do different things. We want to expand that spectrum, thinking, of course, first of all, also about the possibility to avoid using AI, because once we do the some assessment of the opportunities, technical, organizational feasibility, quite often it might be that actually, or it's not needed because there are already other ways to do those things that people want to do, or it's very expensive and difficult, there is no data available, and other complications that we see in the processes. So for sure, it should start from one option of avoiding it and doing things in other ways. Also, maybe thinking about doing it later, but before adjusting some processes and things that are made within the organization. And there's also another layer, which is very interesting, which is about like this creating this allies with the AI, in sense that normally when we talk about like automations, because AI is doing something faster, better than humans, and so it's automated. Augmentations, like humans getting better, but there's also another layer about which now people are starting to talk, where it's about really, okay, how AI together than human can work better than both AI and human. So those are like new frontiers that are, of course, very interesting and would be very interesting to get to. Hopefully we can manage. And in order to think of that, we're coming to this first level of the principles. So first of all, asking about, okay, but do we really need AI for this task? Like are there other things? If we decide that we need it, so how can we buy it or develop it? How really important it should be to invest into this? And these can be also based on the other questions. So for example, whether we need some impact which is good enough or transformational, because of course existing tools can be good enough and doing also sometimes mediocre work, but maybe often that's just what you need. But if you need something transformational, quite often you need to build it and invest a lot. Other layer is it individual or collective? Because of course, doing just opening ChatGPT for one person or creating a tool which should be accessible by the whole organization and put together the data and so on, it's much more complicated and difficult. And of course, another thing very, very important is about the workflows and how much we need to adjust or change them. So if to use AI, you really need to reconstruct all the workflows, maybe it doesn't make sense, and the benefits of using AI are lower than those impact effort that you need to put there. Again, these are a few questions which you found very useful to think about this part where we think about opportunities. There could be many, many others, but that's like a starting point to start this conversation and thinking about it. And eventually we're coming to the tools layer. So we started using a few of them. So opportunity landscape canvas is one which we use specifically to map the whole value chain and then think about like different opportunities and ideate them. Functionalities cards, so they're helping like building blocks of the different AI technologies. And then AI opportunities prioritization canvas. So once we have our idea, a lot of ideas, then how do we prioritize them and look into details? So we have them, some of them here in the space, and then you can find them online in the playbook. And yeah, here are some images of the opportunity landscape specifically from the workshops that we're running. So it's a canvas which is supposed to cover from the front end to back end the whole like perspective of the service. We'll see it later used better in detail. Yes, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I think one of the value of this approach is that it allows us to start from the context and understand what is the situation in which the AI is going to be applied first. So we basically it forces, as in the service design approach, people to think first of what they are doing, what is the process that we are following to deliver a service, what are the problems that we are experiencing, what are the gaps, the things that we cannot do well. And then with that knowledge and that alignment, we're using the cards to say, okay, so what can we do differently? And that different level could be very simple. If it's automation, usually is a bit simpler to imagine, or it could be something that completely changes the way in which the process is done. And what we found out by using this with companies is that typically they see this as a way to create order in all the enthusiasm and the teams running after specific tools or technologies or products that are already available. This is sort of a way to take a step back and say, okay, so maybe we should do this, and that because we need support, or because it could really improve what we are offering.
Exactly. So sorry, I was trying to figure out the audio here. Yeah, actually, I see some people there. So there's some place here if you want to see it. Yeah, sorry, here exactly. I was trying to turn off the volume because it was just a fun moment of a workshop with people using a lot of cards, and because the cards are actually just the technological elements put together, but they're helping us to then build from the different blocks to build the use cases, and they're very nice. Just to they have also all the examples and help people to think about what's possible, but again, just as a starting point and inspiration point to work with that. And here we wanted to show as I said, focus more on the projects and how we use those tools in practice. So here's how we pass, let's say, from the opportunity landscape to strategy and the roadmap, and applied it to the real case. So do you want to say part about introduction, maybe?
Yeah, basically we are using some examples from real projects to show that this framework and these activities in action. And these for the first circle, for the first O, we chose a project that we have been running with Medici Senza Frontiere, which is maybe some of you know, is a client and an organization we work with since many years. And after several years of digital transformation and capacity building on the topics of innovation, in 2025, so at the beginning of this year, they decided that they wanted to develop their own approach to the topic of AI. And so we supported them in defining a roadmap and a strategy for the upcoming years.
So exactly, they felt that in the past they were maybe lagging behind with the approach to the technologies. They're, of course, not a technology-driven company, quite the opposite, humanitarian-driven company. And they felt that it was okay and fine, but with the AI, of course, it's very fast and it can help quite a lot, especially to increase the impact of their work and more donations and everything. So they felt that they cannot afford to lag and fall behind. Therefore, we started with the actually very generative process where we started with the mapping. So using this opportunity landscape to map their main value chains. We mapped 5 different processes within the organization. So from HR, communication, fundraising, and others, in order to understand different roles and different processes and how they work, and then just to analyze where people saw the biggest problems and make the first brief hypothesis of opportunities. So there was a lot of those hypotheses, after which we went to filter them, looking at doing the survey with the whole organization staff and trying to understand from those initial hypotheses, how can we understand what makes sense, what should we prioritize. And once we passed through that part about the understanding of the most important opportunities, we brought them into the workshop where, again, people from the different departments participated. About 20 people came together to ideate based on those opportunities. So here we have a specific tool. So basically from the value chains, initially we translated them into something a bit more still taking those processes, but putting them into the how might we form to help people understand and think better about their work and different options. And of course, also the behavioral archetypes and how different people can approach their work and AI. We brought a lot of ideation tools there. One of the big issues with AI is, of course, the fact that it's so complex and difficult to understand what actually it can do, what it cannot do, how to think about all these technologies. So actually, in that case, we also translated those cards into more specific actionable language. So instead of machine learning, we had AI can learn things and stuff like that, so that it was also more approachable for people to understand without thinking about specific technologies. And we also brought this fun way of translating, making them imagine that you have this AI supporter. What would you ask from them? How, which formats would it take? Because also that is important. Is it not just agent, and we will talk about that, not just necessarily a bot, a chatbot, but maybe it's a copilot, or maybe it's just a dashboard or whatever. And another part is very important was also the training formats. So other formats in order to adopt the AI in the organization. We also had AI helper to assist, so that thinking about okay, this technology might be complex, so why don't we also use it to help us? And this way people could ask specific prompts if they were blocked during the ideation. And eventually, though, the ideation was fun, actually people were very happy with that workshop and everything. But then we had a lot of those things. You see a lot of post-its, and we had to make sense. Okay, so now what? What should we really suggest to implement? And that was the most long process there, and we learned a lot. And also that's where the canvases from the prioritization are coming from. Because we had to talk to the tech experts, we had to talk to people within the inside the organization to understand their priorities. Specifically, the input from the director was very important to understand their strategic objectives and how AI application can align with that. And so, yeah, that was quite a long process where we did actually validated basically all of those synthesized opportunities with the tech experts who gave opinions on each of them. And that's where we understood also these options of how to approach the implementation, that of course something can be bought, something can be customized, something you need to build, but that's not only options, because actually it might be that organization already have some tools and they need to train people to use them. And another thing is, of course, establishing different procedures, policies, and other things in order to enable all this work. Do you want to add something about this case, or?
I think going towards the final part, what was really important was understanding based on the mission and the strategy of the organization, priorities could be really different. So it's true that we can all have GenAI installed on the computer and do many other things, but at the end, what really matters to them? That was, I think, a key question in order to basically see the different priorities and the different strategy that we could adopt. So at the end, for example, one of their core missions is to share basically information about the places where they operate and share stories from those places. So all the ideas that allow them to work fast with content and be more effective in the distribution of content were very much prioritized. And in general, this helped a lot distinguishing what could be attractive, because, for example, everybody, is maybe happy to save time doing boring stuff and doing something else. And maybe personal productivity takes a lot of these conversations during ideation, but at the end like, does it really matter at some point? So we asked ourselves this type of questions, and having in mind the mission of the organization, I think helped a lot going through the prioritization.
Definitely. And then we reached the roadmap with these different levels of detail based on of course, the beginning of the roadmap more detailed, and then some things which also need to be prioritized maybe later, because we don't know yet which technologies will be available like in 2 years. So for those things, they will need to look at that in that particular moment. And there were also some very significant projects.
Yeah, so at the end, maybe a level that is really about also learning how to use available tools, and a lot of the short-term roadmaps that we are seeing with many organizations and companies are based on training at the end and learning how to use available technologies. But then when in the prioritization you find something that could be really distinctive and differentiating, that may be worth investing on it, obviously, more than a lot of other things. So in that case, the investment went, for example, on building a new type of dashboard to aggregate a lot of internal data and external data that could influence the way in which they do operations on the territory. And this for them is a competitive advantage, and something that requires years to build, because all the AI implementation are based on a lot of data, needs to have the information well adjusted and available. So it means years of work, but at the end, it's something that once done could really like boost and catalyze a lot of work that they are doing. So it's probably a sustainable, in their case, investment in that sense.
Okay, so that was about the opportunities, one of the examples of how it was applied, and also how the tools, where are they coming from, and how we use them in different situations. The next phase of orchestration, as I was saying before, it's not just, so here we're going to talk a bit more about the specifically relations between humans and AI, but it's also actually about this understanding the relations both as users and also as workers and people within an organization, and how to align those processes. So as I was saying, one of the important things we like to repeat is that the thinking about the shape of AI is also very important, let's say. And often we fall into this thinking about it only as a chatbot, or like also anthropomorphizing it into like entity part. But of course, we also need a lot of just tools which can do different things, which are very particular and focused in their use. And there's another level which is often forgotten, because it's supposed to be so, where it's about the AI as a presence, which is like in spam filters, in many other things that we're using, where it's enabling different things. And that's very important aspect also to remember, of course, that in general, as designers, we can shape very different relationship with this technology, and we need to think where it makes sense to shape it in different ways, because of course there's a lot of risks of what is happening now with the like using the language and like developing this relationship with these entities which we don't yet understand. Also, are they entities or what are they? So this is becoming a very complex territory for the designers to navigate. And that's why we wanted to, it's been already, as I showed you already 7 years ago, we're thinking about, okay, these like different spirits of AI, how could they be constructed so that there are different parameters? And of course, we can think about multiple parameters. And we need to remember that, of course, for each service, they might be different, and it makes sense that we as designers define them and we think about that consciously. So we can define the parameters for the relationship, for how AI adapts, how it interacts, what are the emotional aspects. But that's all the things that we should be building consciously, not just because, you know, there's ChatGPT who's doing this way or in other ways. So it's something that we take responsibility for. And it can be based on the, of course, like bigger level of thinking on principles. So from the, let's say, more common principles, we can go into the experience pillars for specific projects. Here we thought about how the classical like interaction design and service design principles apply to AI. So for example, how affordance becomes very interesting, especially like we see it when we think about ChatGPT, that it's like just a chat. It doesn't have anymore like the icons of the Photoshop or any other tool that we were using before. So how do we let people understand the affordance becomes basically your imagination? What are the other ways that we can bring the affordance in there and help people to understand that this task is suitable for this AI, this is not? Of course, the control is a huge question about people are talking a lot about like human in the loop, not in the loop, how it should be working. And of course, for each service, it will make sense to have more or less control based on the responsibility and risks and everything. Consistency, how it behaves predictably. This is becoming very interesting because I don't know what's your experience. In my experience, ChatGPT is already like in these 3 years have become like completely different characters, which is responding in totally different ways. So this is becoming very difficult also for technology which is developing in time. Comfort, of course, how does it feel to use? So also tone of voice, other elements, of course, as we're coming to the language, becoming very important. And of course, the adaptability, if it reads the room, if it understands how it uses the data that it collects, if it's becoming something that frightens us because it knows too much about us, or it manages to use it properly and don't freak us about like its possibilities. Those are, again, some principles that we defined working, but of course, there might be many, many more things. Again, starting point to think about that part. And the tools here. So as we start to combine these humans and AIs, we of course see also this new level of basically augmented user. So it's not just the human user, but human and AI working together. Use cases for the application of agents, and then the stories maps for the user and agents and how they're working together. So here we will show an example.
I think here, compared to the first or maybe it's also your experience, but there is a lot of discussion and conversations, and also projects for us focusing on the opportunity part. The level of maturity as we move forward in the process is a bit lower because, for example, if we consider the orchestration part, it's a lot about raw technology in these days, and so still figuring out what is the experience of using that technology. There are a lot of open questions. So we have been doing a project with Indigo AI, which is a startup in Milan that is working on basically agents that could be used, for example, during e-commerce experiences or many others to basically help users make decisions and do assistance. This is based on obviously the specific implementation. What happens to them is that this is the technology they offer. The product is the agent. Obviously, the agent is fed with all the data that the organizations want to use with that agent. And so basically, there is always a moment of implementation and adaptation of the technology to the specific need of the company that is buying this chatbot at the end. So there is this a bit the perception that you are buying a platform, but there is some work that needs to be done, and it's not simple to adapt it. With the enthusiasm in these days, when they came to us, they shared that there are companies getting in touch and asking crazy things, like if the agents could do anything. So basically, they made an example of somebody saying, we want to put an agent on our website so that we increase our basically sales, and in that case, specifically selling washing machines, among other products. And they were like, okay, but how is that possible through the agents? And also the agent, the chatbot, in the way in which it manifests to the user, is just a part of an experience, for example, online on the website. So it also depends on what is happening there. And at the beginning, they wanted to work, they thought that it was better for them to work with clients with obviously a good user experience, but it's not always the case. So a lot of conversations around how these really support the person in the experience. We help them defining a process in which that they use to basically interact with the companies, to understand a bit more about the scope of the agent, and also set expectations that are maybe more grounded on an understanding of the user need, the data that the company has, and what is actually feasible, so that they don't end up basically not being able to run after basically the request that they receive. This process is based on a moment of preparation in which they try to understand what is actually feasible in terms of scope of the agent, and to set the expectations based on the data that the organization is having, and also on the current status of the overall experience and the customer experience in general. And then there is a moment that is more about understanding what the agent is going to do, which is also difficult. In this case, what we try to bring in the process is to basically put ourselves in the shoes of the customers or the users in the e-commerce or in the website, and try to see what are the specific things that are more maybe recurrent as a request, or other needs that people might have, and then build the agent basically around those stories, bringing in the human perspective. Sometimes this is not enough, so there is another part of the process that I'm going to show you next. But very simple elements that we have been bringing from digital design and experience design experience, but then tailored to the context. These are examples of cards that they use to understand what are the specific use cases that the agents need to cover, how frequent they are, how complex they are in terms of data. Then they have these agent identikit that they use to understand, based on those stories, what are specific parameters that need to be adjusted in the platform. And examples on how to prioritize these use cases in order to basically support in a conversation also the client in understanding what is feasible and what is not. As I was saying before, this sometimes is not enough. And again, these type of projects are a lot of there is a lot of demand then for research to really understand where to invest most of the effort. So they also developed, or we tried to help them develop competencies around how to do user research, interviewing internal and external stakeholders. The company is made mostly of engineers and a few product designers. So for them, it was something that they were not used to do, but they understood that in order to make this experience work for everyone, they need to collect more information around the context first. And so we help them developing some skills on how to do user research. Yeah, this is an example of materials that we provided in terms of questions that they can use during those type of interviews, and other suggestions, as we always do when we try to disseminate a bit our competencies in other contexts.
And eventually the outcomes. So as I was saying, it's very important because AI is also very complex, but also developing. It's not a static technology that you can implement and it doesn't change. So the last circle becomes very important. And of course, we always knew that also that in Double Diamond, it maybe was missing. So it was time also to make it more evident. So in this case, of course, there are lots of talk about the consequences of AI. Of course, there are environmental and many others. Here we bring some just few about like the workers' rights. So the fact that they say that, it's not AI that's going to take your job, but another person will use an AI. But okay, not everyone maybe can use AI. And it's also becoming a very problematic question always because it means that another person is going to be in some way displaced. There are still not clear things about the human development, the impact on our brains, critical thinking, learning processes, and all the other things. So there are more and more reports on the people getting delusional, OpenAI taking in the forensic psychiatrists trying to understand what is happening. So that's really a big issue, actually, which cannot be neglected. Of course, there are lots of tech limits still, specifically about GenAI technology. When clients come and say, we saw that people are doing this with ChatGPT and that with ChatGPT and another thing with ChatGPT, of course, till some point. But then if you need to do something really reliable, something very particular, then it's probably not going to be working, or you need to put a lot of investment into customization and adjustments, and it might be not feasible and like really worth the money and effort at that point. And of course, another part which is then important for the companies is that return on investment is not clear yet. There is like this paradox of GenAI, as they call it, that a lot of companies apply it, but not many report any measurable returns. And a lot are saying that because there are a lot of pilots which are not being developed further, and that things that are being implemented are the ones that are more easy, so like ChatGPT, whatever, copilots, but they're difficult to measure, while the other more vertical, more transformational are not passing the pilot mode. So it's really like a complex situation. So it's very important for the organizations to think about those issues also in advance when thinking, and then of course be able to measure. That's the issue when they said that we cannot measure because the processes were not set in the beginning. Of course, ethical principles are becoming extremely important at this point. So there are a lot of frameworks which are putting together different ethical principles. We just wanted to synthesize some of them and put the most important one. Of course, there's like the foundation about AI preferably not doing bad things to humans, but doing good things to humans. And then there are many others, so about the human rights, about like it being human-centered, preserving autonomy, justice, and fairness, about accountability, about the governance. We have like the poster here, and you have the like the synthetic description in the playbook. But of course, that's like something just to keep in mind when thinking. We totally suggest you to go and read more in detail about those ethical principles and to think better which are applicable, which are not, because of course another point about the ethics is that it's not universal. So for one culture it's this, for another culture it's that, in one context it's this, in another it's that. So of course there are some things that we can put together, but then it's something that should be always discussed, and that is very important to bring into this process. And so here we have a couple of tools. So one is the AI impact map. We have in the space, actually in the corridor, you can see like there's a big printout of this impact map that we are going to talk about. And another one is the AI maturity model. It's very connected to the tool that we saw before about the prioritization, where we talk about the levels at which AI is implemented in the company. So starting from the individual to team level, to the cross-department and the whole organization level. As we're saying, they are very important when we think about the implementation opportunity. So thinking about like how complex it will be, how feasible it will be, but then when it's already implemented, also to monitor, okay, so now the companies at this level, we have like few things individual, a few things for the teams. How can we proceed to the organizational level? What is happening with maturity? Which impacts and outcomes are we having? So we will show you an example. Once again, we were very lucky to work on this because this was, again, before GenAI explosion in 2022. This company was already asking about the impact of AI at this moment. And it was also the moment when like only the first papers about the sustainable AI were coming out with indicators. So that was a very important moment to learn also about the involvement of service design in this process, because we're not that familiar and used to think about like this specific measurement of impacts as the process. Do you want to add something about the... No, okay. So the company Amagama was asking actually what's the impact generated by their AI-based solutions. And in that case, the implementation was in this warehouse situation. It was an inventory optimizer for the logistics, let's say, process of canteen company. So it's like, the public food distribution. And they put this inventory optimizer in order to initially think about saving food, so not producing a lot of waste, and thinking how to better plan what to buy, when to buy, how many things, not to keep them in the warehouse. So the process was starting from the two paths initially, where we were on one hand understanding the system. So in general, mapping the stakeholders, understanding how the overall value chain works, what are the possible affected stakeholders and actors, and understanding the impact. So as I was saying, the impact indicators are a very important thing, and those were like two things coming together. Then we were measuring that part, and eventually the part about storytelling and narrating that. So one of the very interesting parts of that project that we found out is that actually the first impacts of this project were happening before the implementation, but already the process during the process of development, when they were talking about data. So when they had to put together the data management system to analyze it, to clean it, and to make these workflows, that was already a huge impact for the company. Because actually then we found out that a lot of impacts were connected, a lot were about AI, how it works, but also a lot about the process of working with this data, becoming more data literate and capable of also taking these decisions that company was doing. So you see already in that part, like the spike of the impact. And then, of course, after the implementation, the main impacts were measured. So we started with the system maps, as I was saying, the whole value chain. So it starts from the suppliers on the left to the user on the right. And in the middle, we have the warehouse. And on top, all the informatic and other systems which are governing all of it. Where you see on the right, red one, there's this inventory optimizer. So one of the systems which were applied to the management of this warehouse. And it was applied to the particular also part of not all of the foods. So already mapping that was actually very interesting, because when people who are working on this project for a long time saw this map visualized, they started, but we applied it only to this part, but so we can apply it also to that. Or if you think about like, okay, it's in the warehouse, but there are also canteens, and actually a lot of food waste is happening in the moment of the final consumption. So maybe we can apply other systems to the canteens and so on and so forth. So already having also the things well mapped and synthesized was helping people who were involved in the project to think about other opportunities and about other impacts that this could bring. Then, of course, we mapped all the stakeholders. So from the people who were directly working with this inventory optimizer and the ones who might have been affected. So trying to get to the planetary level was quite difficult, of course, to understand what is really measurable there. And then, as I was saying, understanding the impact themes. So here we looked at the classical, of course, the ESG, sustainable goals. We looked at the sector indicators, so for the food distribution sector. And as I was saying, some other frameworks, so the first indicators for the sustainable AI or other different things that we thought could be interesting and applicable. And that was a long process also of like, okay, which is the stakeholder, which impact, what are the indicators, how can we measure that? So is it a qualitative thing which we can talk about? Is it something that we need to get data and all the numbers from? And yeah, exactly, you can see that we did this collaborative work between us as designers and the data scientists and other people working on the project, putting together the quantitative part. Here are some images from the exactly pasta saved and other moments in this work. And eventually the visualization, it became basically a sort of index, exactly, index of all the impacts. So it starts from the center, from the people, from the algorithm and people who are directly involved, the team of this company, and then goes into the circles to the more indirect impact. So that's why also you see in the first circles more impacts mentioned. And again, as I was saying, there are also different types of impact. So the ones which are related to specifically data management and use, the ones which are about the algorithm, the ones are also about the UX, because actually we understood that creating this tool with the better UX and the navigation about this data and the process was also helping people to work better. And the interesting part is that while they were talking about the food waste and saving that, a lot of impacts which we saw were in the governance part about the workflows. In the beginning, they were quite worried about that issue. They were thinking about, oh no, they're gonna tell us that, I don't know, people don't have to work anymore and, you know, that we're automating things. Instead, people were very happy that the company was using this inventory optimizer. They were feeling that it helps them to work better and do more qualitative work than the, you know, just understanding the copy pasting the numbers from one thing to another and so on. They managed to do more work. And also, actually, they were feeling very proud of the company which were implementing those solutions, feeling that they invest in their work, you know, quality of their work life. And it was a very interesting element. Yeah, so there were some exactly some of those impact themes, and some of them which were more about the also verified impacts, and some which remained as hypotheses, and some as the risks. And eventually, it was really also about understanding the not just you know, measuring those particular indicators, but understanding which is the value which is provided for the companies with this AI implementation. It helped also the company understand the you know, the business model, because they were paying, of course, for the solution, but as they saw that there's things in the process which are already improving the impact, maybe it should be thought differently. And also the like becoming sort of pioneers in this impact literacy, because there were a lot of talk about data literacy, but we understood during this process that also impact literacy is very important for people to be able to measure and to set this process as well.
Yeah, for us, this fully connects with the beginning and the opportunity part, because in this case, we have been doing it as an evaluation afterwards, but obviously the ideal scenario is to start thinking of this impact and these objectives right at the beginning, and also start thinking of the way in which the results, the outcomes could be measured against those specific elements. And as you saw in the pictures, there was a lot of again research to understand what was actually happening. So talking to the different operators in the warehouse, to the other parts of the companies, to the providers, the suppliers, to the canteens. It's difficult to collect data in a quantitative way. I mean, there are parts that we could measure in that way, like okay, was the food waste really reduced? It's something that could be measured. Or another consequence was having less trucks basically going around because they were more optimized in terms of transport, and that's also an environmental impact that could be measured. But all the parts related to well-being of the employees, how they felt about their work, and also, for example, for the suppliers, they felt that they were receiving information in a clearer way and maybe a bit before than in the past. So suppliers were more happy to work with this company than before. So these things, how do you measure them? So the qualitative research is a key element that we need to consider, and I think is what is coming out as a big transversal topic.
Exactly. And as Roberta was saying, exactly that all this process is a loop, so that when you think about opportunities, you should also actually think about what are going to be the outcomes, the consequences, and then once the outcomes are there, you start to think about like other opportunities, and so it's a constant cycle which is going on. So we discussed a lot of the frameworks and case studies here. You can find more in the playbook, which we have for people also. If you didn't find it before, we have it. And for those online also, they will be able to download it. We wanted just to mention one more thing, that this playbook is, of course, one way for us to transmit this knowledge and our approach. We also actually really like to do that on the practical way. So we run these AI bootcamps, which are they exist in two ways. So this is a in-person workshop run in the studio. So with people coming here, having a lot of fun with the cards and canvases, but also understanding very fast what are the opportunities for their processes, for their organizations, and followed also by us. So it's a sort of also a consulting moment done together. A lighter version also online. We piloted that mode and it works. It's of course a bit different, but still it seemed to. We have some participants here, so you can ask about their experience later. And we finally decided the winter 2026 date. So there are going to be 3 in-person bootcamps here in the studio, and also one online. It's run in 2 dates. So it's like the whole thing, which is separated in 2 dates. But besides that, we're happy to, of course, also work on bringing them to the teams and to work on your processes, specific processes, and working together to apply these tools, and also to think about how they can bring more impact to the different organizations. So you can follow all of that in the newsletter, and so if you follow the first QR code, you can download the playbook and also subscribe to newsletter. For people who are online, there's this Miro board where you can add some comments and suggestions about the tools and also about the bootcamps. And also here in space, for the people who are participating, we'll ask you then to, while you're taking some beer and snacks, to maybe think about tools, and also which are the bootcamp phases that you might be interested, because for now we did the opportunity bootcamps. We think about like developing them into the orchestration and the outcomes phases. We need to understand also the maturity of the companies which are asking at which phase they are. And another idea that we had is also bringing it to the specific sectors and domains. So as we saw that the value chain can be mapped to the different specific elements. So for example, HR, communication, fundraising in case of Doctors Without Borders. So those could be also some verticals which are very interesting to explore, and see how also different opportunities can change, how risks, consequences are changing in them. So it's something that we are wondering where it makes sense and how to develop that part. And of course, it's time for the questions, comments, any type of suggestions and things that you want to express. I don't know if there are also the... Also, if someone online wants to ask some questions in the chat, we can see them. Yeah.
I have 2 questions. So the first one is, you said when you were explaining the last circle related to outcomes, that it would be nice if you could, do it at the beginning. So were you able to update the opportunity circle and integrate some tool related to that?
Sorry, we will repeat the question because the question is about the connection between the opportunities and outcomes circles, and also how to update and the tools regarding that.
Yeah, I think it's difficult because when we find ourselves in the working with the organizations, there is a certain speed and willingness to move fast towards results, but we try to stick to it, so to at least have a conversation around what are the objectives, not just the main ones that everybody knows, but the impact that the solution could generate at the social level, and also governance, obviously economic and environmental. We have been referring a lot to the ESGs in that sense, and at least having the conversation helps maybe unveiling something that they were not thinking about, or maybe potential risks to monitor. So it's already good if it's a light, immersion at the beginning. Moving forward, we believe, but I don't know, time will tell us. But we believe that that evaluation is something that we should try to bring more and more to the beginning of the project and find space for it.
We already did that, no, with Doctors Without Borders section, one of the projects. So starting also doing the impact map in the beginning to understand what are the goals. And then also, like as I was saying, this maturity model, basically this similar structure is used in the both moments, so that in the beginning you think about at which levels of organization to implement it, and then you measure also, okay, what is happening, how we are moving across the maturity. So yeah, those also, like, they're connecting.
I think another point is that everybody's talking about adoption of the AI solution in these days, because at the end, maybe you feel that you have developed and assist us, even something small, but people are not fully using it. And sometimes we are called on the project just to focus on the adoption of the solution. So at the end, this exercise could be a way to start thinking earlier on what could happen after, and what are the other things that you need to put in place in order to make sure that if you are investing on a solution, it doesn't remain an exercise or a pilot. So this is maybe another storytelling that we can try.
Because I think service design is so intangible, it's hard to get a buy-in at the get-go unless until you have a client who's, who really values the discipline. So I was wondering, one thing is that you see the impact on the society, the planet, etc., which is more systemic. But is there a way to have more tangible, achievable, objective impacts that you measure at the get-go and then later?
I think this story for us was a good example, because the organization was concerned that by adopting AI solutions like that one, people will be concerned for losing their job or be replaced by AI, which is very typical in this context. And by doing the analysis later, we found out that the same person were actually happier than before in their work. So it has become internally in the company a way to say, okay, we should not fear that, but maybe see it as a value if it adds something to the work of the individual. So I'm just bringing this example because this is very solid and tangible, because when organizations start approaching these implementations, in our experience at least, they are concerned for the investment and concerned for the reactions of the people working in the company. And so basically this could be a way to reassure them or say, okay, we can feel a bit in control of some of these elements by working in a different way. So it could be a tangible way to introduce it, rather than talking about maybe impact in general as a word that sounds very abstract in certain contexts.
I have one more question. I don't know if you're going to.
Do you want to?
Please go ahead.
Okay.
So you mentioned like the one slide where you said the impact of AI is still under discussion, and you mentioned that there's some companies who've done pilots, but the pilots have stopped. So I'm wondering if you have more insight about why they've been stopping, or why the scale up is not happening.
Yeah. Partially it's because of the readiness of the technology in a way, and also the readiness of the context around. So I think everybody, maybe also because of, this is particularly true for GenAI-based implementation, in which you feel that, I don't know, I can put all my knowledge there and I will solve in this way all the problems we have. I think everybody has heard about these things. And then you find out that it could be wrong, that you need to be aware of the context to know how to interpret the results. All these things then obviously change the effect. And so if it's something that is customer facing, it's going to be, it's just too far away. If it's something that is for internal employees, there is still the concern that the company is giving ourselves something that could be wrong. So at the end, that stops the pilot. If it's for like internal employees working like staff members, then maybe it's a risk that is a bit more taken. But how reliable that is,
Yeah. It's difficult.
So accountable, because it's not only a problem of reliability, but of accountability.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Who is responsible? Who is going to be punished if something is wrong? And this is a big problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why also in the initial activities of prioritization, we use that also a lot to maybe try to help in certain contexts, try to stay away from jumping on this easy solution, because they seem easy, but at the end, maybe they don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
There is also
question. Yeah, exactly. There are two questions online and one here. So let's take one here and then, okay, let's do one online, one there. Okay. So there's the question from Andrea, who is not with us physically, but thank you for following. So Andrea is saying that he has a reflection around AI, that it is changing fast, but it contrasts on the speed of human change. And it seems to me, on a cultural point of view, is just scratching the surface. What's our take on this? So we are always, as we're saying about the AI being a complex socio-technical system, that's exactly the point where I think it's important that there are different speeds really about the movement of technology now, and the culture and the organizations and everything. And that's why actually we're saying that there's hype, there's a lot of like Silicon Valley trying to get a lot of investments and everything and blow this bubble again. But there's, of course, then the reality of application to the companies, to the clients, to people, how people talk. For me, it's also like about even like what language we use, because in my personal perspective, we need to invent new pronouns for AIs and how we approach it and how we talk to it. Because for me, it's really weird when a tool says, I am a tool, I can do this and that. So we really need to understand how to use it better. And yeah, I totally agree that there's a lot of cultural discussions that needs to be made. And that's where I think exactly the service designers are, they should become very important in this moment, and into bringing this focus in the companies, understanding this and bringing them to discussion, so that facilitating these discussions with the people who are within the companies and making them possible to do the decisions together there. I don't know, what's your opinion?
Let's take
let's take another from here.
Very interesting presentation. I have two very quick questions. The first one is about how you decide how to map the needs and the ethical problems when you help companies or organizations implementing AI. Because if I'm not mistaken, you said you want to map their needs to lead them well on how to invest and on what to invest the money. But these may clash with some ethical reasonings you may have. So say, for example, an HR consultancy wants to use or implement an AI tool to screen CVs to look for specific skills or keywords on people's CVs. This may clash with the ethical view that you may not want an AI to do this. So how do you weigh different parameters differently if you do so? And so what kind of threshold parameter standards do you use to maybe tell a company they should or should not do something? And this leads me to my second question about the canteen case. So you said they were very happy in the end because they didn't lose their jobs, and actually the system was very helpful to them in their everyday job. However, you also mentioned that they needed less trucks, maybe because they were better equipped to stock food. So in that case, a canteen is not very profit oriented, but a business may be. So an unsolicited, unintended consequence may be, well, maybe we need less drivers at this point. So it was not an intended, looked for consequence, but it's just another outcome. So how do you deal with that, with unsolicited, unintended consequences?
So sorry, we'll repeat for the people online. So the question is really about like the mapping the needs of the companies and the ethical and clash with the ethical ethical principles and parameters. So how if HR wants to use AI to screen the CVs and it's their need and how we advise them. And another one about the case about the canteen. So how, for example, if there were less trucks going around, so less drivers were taking the job. Do you want to start?
Now, very interesting questions. I think the first, ethical principles, we try to propose them as a ground, like something that is always there in the conversation. We explain them at the beginning of the process, and we try to make everyone familiar with them. That said, once we start ideation with AI, the situation is immediately out of control. People say they want to do crazy things, and you are like, no, this is not possible. Look, we have this principle. So at the end, I think there is that, in a way, instinct, maybe, that we try to, as people, try to maybe solve our problems in a way that could feel unethical, but obviously we try to bring back the conversation to those principles. And also, we found very helpful to have legal experts or technology experts on the table that could say, like, really, this is illegal. So again, could try to bring the conversation to another level besides also repeating principles. So I think we should be thinking of us as designers, we should be aware of those principles very much and consider them a ground for the conversation, ask help to other experts and try to be supportive in that sense. And connecting to the other question, I think something that we should accept is that there is a level of complexity of what we are discussing that is high. So also in that case, for example, it's true that people in the managing their warehouse were happier for their work, but they also recognize that they were able to maybe manage 2 warehouses instead of 1, and without adding other people to the team, which means maybe some other people won't be able to find jobs. So I can mention a ton of examples of that project in that sense. There is always in a way a good and a bad, positive and negative. They are all interconnected. I think there is a lot of value in just being aware of what is happening, discussing the conversation, and also then taking a position. So as a company, do we want to have people doing this job or not? what is our position at the end. As we saw before in the numbers, it's not fully recognized that there is a big economic advantage of using AI in many different things. So as economy is driving a lot of choices, maybe there are also others that we need to consider.
Yeah, also, for example, the ethical principles, when we worked for Doctors Without Borders, we brought the specific set. I think you see here, I still have this humanity sticker there, because we actually aligned the ethical principles of AI and their principles as humanitarian workers and the manifesto that they have. So, for example, that's, of course, easier way. That's the Doctors Without Borders, I know. But you'd be surprised, because still people like do things like we don't want to have calls or meetings and so on. So like still you need to navigate people in the organization on what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. So those are the very interesting situations that occur when we talk about AI, and it's important really to have that conversations, of course.
Also, when we talk about the avoid aspect that Julia was mentioning at the beginning, that's also an opportunity to ask yourselves or the people you are discussing with, where do we want to avoid using AI? Which means that maybe it's just because it's something that you have fun doing, I don't know, or that you perceive there is a value in doing it and keeping the ownership.
Yeah, there's another question, Roberta, this is for you. So could you reflect on how you see the job of service designers change with AI, and what might we have to unlearn?
Yeah, I think a bit building on what we were just saying, probably is a bit connected to losing a bit of control, let's say, in the feeling of when you, I don't know, map a journey or a process, and you feel that all the elements are there, all the pain points, and it becomes clearer to everybody. In this situation, and we saw it from the examples, it's more about moments, data points, use cases, situations. So I think we should unlearn that we can have a complete view, but try to deal with all this complexity and uncertainty in a different way. So it's more about reflections, I think.
Yeah.
I have a question. It's about the tool, AI prioritization canvas.
Yeah.
So I want to know more about how do you decide the parameters on which ideas should go first? Like, how do you lead the participants decide that, thinking about the ROI in the end?
Yeah, that's a perfect question. As I was saying, when we do this work, like the AI strategy work, first there's a lot of ideation, and it's all fun, and it can also be done quite fast. And there's a lot of work of prioritization and making sense. So of course, like this canvas is trying to summarize that moment. We did it during the boot camps with people, and they managed to do it quite fast. But quite often they actually say, oh, but I need like other people from my team to be with me to talk about it, or like I don't understand, I don't know, this technology, does it exist or not? So that's something that you really need to do with other people. So both, as we're saying, understanding the feasibility of technology and the objectives, goals, strategic goals of the company or the team or whoever it is. That's very important discussion to have, of course, within the company, and we guide them through this, putting together those different points of view. But that's the most, of course, complex moment there.
Yeah, I think compared to how we do prioritization in other situations, in this case, it's partially about the effort, and so different ways in which you could adopt a solution, and partially about the amount of people in the company who could use it. So if you have something that costs a lot, but then as, I don't know, a couple of users, unless they are very much strategic for the company, maybe that's not the best way to proceed in that direction. So we try to basically merge those two dimensions of like the opportunity that there is in the market and the impact on the organization itself.
let's do the last question and then we proceed with the discussion with the beers and snacks and everything.
I'll be very quick. I'm not a designer, I'm a data scientist. I'm working in AI engineering. But I'm getting more and more close to design and specifically service design. My question is, in mapping the opportunities, given that you started doing this before 2022, did you notice a change in the perception of people in what is expected as being AI? I said that I'm data scientist because for me, it's clear that there is a continuity between a classical machine learning model and some GenAI stuff. Did you see signs of disappointment, maybe when proposing as opportunities something that were, from a technical perspective, a simple AI, and how did you manage that?
Yeah, the question, we have a data scientist here, and the question is about like changes in the how clients perceive the opportunities regarding different types of AI before GenAI and now. And yeah, for sure, there's a huge change because before AI seems like something complex, something expensive, something you need a lot of data for. And now people are looking at ChatGPT and all the influencers, whoever, telling you, here are the 30 prompts which helped me to write my mails better. With this, I streamlined my workflow and things like that. And yeah, there's one new word which we don't want to pronounce anymore in the projects, which is all about like the quick wins and looking for those things in which we can apply just simple solutions. Because as I was saying, it's really hard for people to perceive the capacity of those systems. So they think that if I can work with one document with ChatGPT, then I can apply it to the whole organization. But then we know that no, not really, because there's context window, because there are many issues with that and applying the data there. And you need to scale it, and then maybe it's not going to be even scaled again with the good cost and everything. So yeah, I see there's a lot of, on one hand, of course, willingness to use AI, and organizations there's all this shade use of AI, so people just use them by themselves because it's so easy to use. And we talk about GenAI, of course, here. On the other hand, exactly, it's maybe obscuring about maybe the other parts of the more complex implementations where maybe there can be a lot of transformation, but yeah, it doesn't look like quick wins and easy solutions, and you need to really invest and work on it a lot. So yeah, I had this perception.
Yeah, also when we use, for example, the cards for ideation, people immediately go to all the Gen AI functionalities. It has become equal to AI in certain contexts of conversations. And so this helps maybe considering other elements, and we find helpful for that reasons. Also because there is not, it's still to maybe be demonstrated the added value that you can find there. So we try to maybe bring other elements to the table. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we'll be closing streaming. Thanks a lot for everyone who followed us. And if you have any questions, comments, you can get in touch with us in many ways. And we'll proceed with the aperitivo here. Thank you. One technical thing. We have two people who, because there was this ticket with the cards, and we have two people who have to take the cards. So, okay, one, and there was another one.